I think the first thing I should probably say, it's not my software. I'm just here talking about it today because actually the core of the software was actually developed by Dr. Rebecca Fiebrink, who I'm sure quite a lot of you know here, and her mug was shot up on the big screen in the auditorium earlier this morning, so everybody would recognize her. And unfortunately, because she had the audacity to go on maternity leave, that's why I'm here today talking about sound control. Just to start off with, a little bit about me. I'm Simon Steptoe. I actually work for probably an organisation that's very different from most of you, which is the Northamptonshire Music and Performing Arts Trust, which is really traditionally one of those music services that originally worked within Northamptonshire County Council, but now is an independent charity that provides all the music tuition and the music activities for kids in Northamptonshire and Rutland. If you know anything about music education hubs, Northamptonshire Music Performing Arts Trust is one of those music education hubs. And my job is called, what is it? I always forget, it's quite a long title, Musical Inclusion Programme and Partnership Manager. And I run a programme where we're working mainly with children and young people in what we call challenging circumstances. So that does include kids with special needs, with disabilities, but that also includes children who may be looked after, maybe in foster care, they may be young carers, they also may be on the cusp of going off the rails and attending a pupil referral unit or other such institution. Because I was doing this work, I get into a lot of conversations with people who are music teachers or music therapists who work with kids with special needs. And there's always a conversation about technology and what technology is working well for them in the classroom or in an individual one-to-one scenario. And at the same time, I was talking to Rebecca Fiebrink, who was at the time still at Princeton, and this is before she came across to Goldsmiths, and now she's at UAL. And there were just two things that were coming together. One, I'd come across this software that Rebecca had developed called the Wekinator. And at the same time, this seemed to be like the sort of thing that would help a lot of music teachers, whereby they're saying, we would like much more flexible music applications, music technology, things that we can customize on the fly so that we can tailor things to the individual needs of the children with which we work. So sound control it's a software tool that's been put together. It's actually now written in Mac's MSP, and it was designed specifically to work with children with special needs, with disabilities, and in particular those that are known as PMLD, that is with profound and multiple learning disabilities. And the software enables really people to put together on the fly very, very quickly, and I will demonstrate some of this. Hopefully it won't go wrong, but it will be perfect when I do it. But it enables people to develop custom music interfaces to work with these kids on the fly, i.e. very, very quickly, and adapt them again and again. Now, underpinning all this, and this is where I'm not an expert, but we do have some experts in the room, there's some interactive machine learning that actually does all the nuts and bolts work of making the application actually work. If anybody has any questions about that later on, then we have a couple of people in the room that we can direct that to, because I know absolutely nothing about interactive machine learning. So you're warned. And it's free. This is just software that you can download. I'll just go on to this next bit. Just a quick bit about who's been involved. Obviously, I've mentioned Rebecca, who originated the whole project, or at least the software. But more recently, working on sound control itself, we've had Sam Park-Wolf, who is, stick your hand up, Sam, thank you, who's over there, and also Martin, who I've just met today, but nice to meet you, Martin. They've been working on really putting together the version of the software that we see today, and they know all the nitty-gritty about the innards of the programming. But equally important were two people who are working in the schools in Northamptonshire. One is Jan Hall, who's a music therapist. She runs her own music charity and was also working in a special school in Wellingborough. And she was ably assisted by a colleague of mine, Rebecca Price, professional musician, does a lot of work as a music teacher with special needs kids. And they are the ones who are testing the software out with the young people in situ. So, I mean, basically the collaboration went over 2 years. We had some money from Youth Music, which is part of the funding that I have for my program anyway. We also got a grant from the Paul Hamlin Foundation, and that's the thing that enabled the project to develop and get to the stage that it is now. Lots of workshops in school, lots of observations by Sam and by Rebecca, and there was an iterative refinement of things as went things along. You know, the teacher would say, could we not have it do this? Could it do that? This bit is a waste of time, it never works. And so that iterative process went on across the 2 years. Right, now at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and do a little bit of a demo because probably that's the best thing for you to actually see it in action, see it working, and spend a bit of time doing that. And then maybe we can take some questions, and then if there are no questions, I'll sort of rattle on about a few other things. So hopefully, because I've not had a lot of time to set this up, so let's see if I can make things work. So over here, let's just get rid of this bit to start off with. When you start running the program, you get this little interface up here. Can everybody see the little mouse dancing around so we can see where we are? You can pick a sensor, and you can pick a sound mode, the thing that's going to produce the sound. So let's start with a nice simple model, which is using this device here, which is called Game Track, which I believe, I've never seen it in operation in its original format, but it was used as a golf controller for a PS2 game. We actually used it like this with the kids, so the two tether devices have been hooked together. A little bit easier for the kids to sort of use it, all right? So you choose your device, and then you choose the sound mode. This first mode I'm going to demonstrate is just a sample player. You can trigger different samples that you load into the machine. Once you've got that far, we press generate, and we get a nice another window, and you can see the thing is mapping the movements that I've got there. The next stage with this one is that we need some sounds. So hopefully, if I maneuver things around, animal sounds, a very popular one. I also have fart sounds, but these were extremely popular with the kids, but I won't put you through that today. Let's just use the animal sounds. All you do is take the folder, drop it here, and then if you drop that down, you can see you've got all the samples that are in that folder. Let's pick the first one. Let's pick... Sorry, that's very loud, isn't it? So we may decide with the kid that we want that sound to work when it's here. So all we need to do, we press this button here, the precise button, and that sets up the whole training model, and the algorithms do their bit. And then we might say, let's have, I'm not sure, let's do it again. Have I turned it right down? The sound's gone. Why has the sound gone? Because it's not on loop, that's why. Let's try that again. There we go. That's better. Right, I'm with it now. So we press precise, that trains it up. Let's take another position, and I'll do frog. Precise. Now we run the model. And very quickly, we've got the thing working. I feel almost time to go into a rendition of Old MacDonald. Yeah? And then, you know, we turn run off. We can say, well, if we have it over here, let's have that one, some dolphin clicks. We press precise again. We run the model. And all being well, and of course, those sounds, for any teacher, after a while, get a bit annoying, won't they? Right? So let's try this. If we put it down there, let's see if we can inject some silence into the model. Okay, and we'll train that one there. Run that. Hopefully. There we are. So we've got our on-off switch as well. And you can sort of build that up. You could have any sounds that you want really going into that model. You just have to have them all in a folder. You drop that folder in, and then you can trigger them and build that model up. And I think everybody, you should agree, that's a reasonably quick process. And it doesn't require you to have any sort of programming knowledge, any specific engineering skill about how it's going to work. You just demonstrate what you want it to do, and then the program takes care of all that. Let's think of another little example. You can use the BBC Micra Bit, which is one of these things. Obviously, we've tailored this a little bit. It's got so you can stick it on your wrist. But we have had this thing sort of stuck to people's heads and things like that. When someone, when a kid's got really very little movement, maybe only movement in the head, attached to their head, it's got a motion sensor in it. So again, I go through the same process. This time, of course, we pick the sensor, which is Micra Bit with Bluetooth. Let's take the granulator this time. So we generate that. I'll just stop that for a second. So this granulator thing, some granular synthesis, which is just set up so that you can control the speed, the pitch, and the volume. We've got 3 sounds, because when you're in a teaching situation with the kids in school, you need things up and running really quickly, so there are 3 sounds already plumbed in, but you can drop, where it says custom, drop file, you can drop your own sample in if you want something different, but let's just stick with the organ. So let's just see, I'll keep this one simple, see I'll control the volume. So you can see on the left-hand side we've got the data's being read through Bluetooth. Let's say if we want that to be really quiet, take that right down or off, do precise, find my new position and let that be loud. Do the precise button again, and then the moment of truth, we shall run it. Now that's fine, of course, if I can move my wrist that amount, but say, for example, I've got a clear button here. I must press it, just get annoying after a bit, doesn't it? Say if I've got very little movement in my wrist, maybe I can only do that much. We can try the same idea again, but with a different mapping. So let's just try that. So just a little bit there, let's press precise, and then... So if you're working with another kid who's got much more limited movement, you can do the same thing and you can very, very quickly remap the whole thing. So that's the Micra Bit. Let me just take you through 1 or 2 more little variations of this. Let's try, well, I'm going to try the colour tracker, but it'll be interesting because obviously the colour tracker is a bit dependent on light. So we'll see how it is in this room. If it doesn't work just because of the ambient lighting, I'll try something else. I think it's the mixer I was going to try with this one. Just turn the volume down for a second. So again, this one has some sounds already plumbed in. It's like a mixing desk. You can mix the sounds in and out. You can drop your own samples in on top. So again, you can have it up and running very quickly, or you can drop your own samples in if you want to do your own thing. It works with the camera. We need to get it set up a little bit first. So I bring the tolerance up, and then I click on the color. Could be a favorite toy, something that the kid owns. Let's just try that one. Let's see how that goes. Then we bring the tolerance down. So hopefully we've just got that, nothing else interfering. And again, you can see the color position there. And let's get that volume back up so we can hear it. Oh no, I know what I'll do this time. One of the things that the music teachers found that it was actually quite good, rather than being prescriptive and trying to do, well, we're going to have this sound here and this sound here and that sound there. Sometimes it was nice to just let the machine do some of its own things, understanding something about the movement that the individual would give it, and just set the thing up automatically. And then the child could explore how that worked and find the different sounds within that mapping. So that's why we have this quick button here. So what we do here, say if my range of motion, I can see, hold on, that's getting in the way, isn't it? Say if my range of motion was something like this. Actually, let's be quite generous for this one. And say we're going around most of the screen that we've got there. What I do, I hold the quick button down on the right-hand side, and I move it around in the characteristic motion that I would do, a child would do. And it's doing some work there. Turn that off, run it. And then when I turn the volume up, of course, then you'll be able to hear it. One of the teachers used to do sometimes, probably more with the sample version that you were seeing earlier, was to hide a sound somewhere, say using this one, somewhere in the field of action, hide a sound, everything else is silent, because you might have a therapeutic goal with one of these children that you want them to stretch out to a particular area. If you have maybe one of those lovely fart sounds, they're desperate to make the fart sound, and it's going to encourage them to move down there. So there's musical goals, but there's also some music therapy or therapeutic goals there as well to do with their physical movement. So this one's just already mapped it for me, so I can have a little bit of fun. Maybe a little bit creative now. It's done a little bit of the hard work for me. I feel like I better move on, really. I feel I was quite enjoying that. Okay, so just the last one to show you before we maybe open up for some questions. Let's take. Actually, I think what I might do. No, let's be brave. I'll take the multicolour tracker, and we have an option for it to run with MIDI as well. So somewhere here, I've got a nice cool gadget patch up. If it will come up. Oh, I made it small. Hold on. Where has it gone? Oh dear, come on. Where is it? Open recent. Oh no, go away. New. Oh, there we are. Okay. It's got an arpeggiator on, so a lot of the hard work is being done by the core gadget in this particular instance. Let's hold on. Get that out of the way. This time I'm going to use the multicolour tracker, MIDI mapper. Let's generate the model. I have my glove, I have my lemon. This time we're going to do the same little process. This is more like a switching system, so I've got, hold on, be careful. I've got my red. Yeah, not sure that's taken very well, but that's all right. I'll take that down a little bit. Okay, bring up that, let's see. Click on that. The colours don't look very vibrant there, so I've got a horrible feeling it's going to go wrong. But anyway, let's start off with that. That looks all right. So let's get it going. I'll put it on infinite, so it will keep triggering the arpeggiator. Make sure that it's going out to the right MIDI channel. So that's my lemon sound. Press precise. Get it to run. Choose a different sound. No criticism of my choice of chords, please. Let's do something fancy up there. Train it. So there we are. Let's press run. Oh, there we are. Let's go. So we have a bit of fun with that. I quite enjoy this one. Nice, it's nice having the gadget at the other end of it, doing lots of the hard work. Great, there we are. And then you can sort of add different things into that, I guess I usually find you make it as complex until the thing actually breaks and doesn't work properly anymore. But you can do quite a lot of things with that. Let me just get back to the presentation so I know where I am. Just because I know time's limited, we got that far with it. I've given a little bit about the background, shown you how the software works. Has anybody got any questions? Yes, hello. Oh, right, yeah.
Thank you. How have people in SEND settings responded to this? Because I've done a lot of workshops, and I found that I go in with the tech, and then as soon as I'm out of the room, it doesn't get used. Everybody just fails to, there isn't enough guides and help with practitioners who are going to be there on a day-to-day basis. Have you found that they've adopted this quite easily?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. One is that, in a way, in terms of the Jan Hall and Rebecca Price, they're actually the musicians who are working in the school. So by involving them in the testing process, they are using it. I mean, I think Jan probably to a lesser extent, particularly because she's just gone and retired. But I mean, Rebecca's been using it a lot. I think, in fact, actually, this is Rebecca Price. She also used it for her own musical purposes at an open mic night somewhere in Wellingborough once. So, they're very committed to using it. We are on the cusp of really rolling it out in other places. Now, Rebecca has been in and tested it out in a couple of other special schools. And I think the feedback we got at that point was that, yes, actually it's not as intimidating as it looks. It's quite easy to set up. The problem we then had was that at the time, and this is about a year ago, the Windows version was not behaving itself to the extent it wasn't running at all. So, and unfortunately, most schools now, they're not going to have a lot of Macs, particularly the special schools where they've got limited budgets. So we really spent the last year, and Martin's done a lot. Where's Martin gone? Is he? Oh, there. Yes, straight in front of me. Martin's done a lot of work on that, just getting the Windows version up and running. So really, yes, that's the next thing, because you are right. And I think that was one of the motivations, the sort of things that Jan and Rebecca, Jan in particular, who's been working in the sector for about 30 years as a music coordinator in a special school, because she had to deal with that problem on a daily basis. So using things like eye gaze or Scoogs and things like that. She said there's a lot of things. She had a very old version of Soundbeam, and she said she gave up because it's just so long to set up. By the time they brought the child into the situation, you got 20 minutes, you're fiddling around with the tech, the kid gets a bit bored. Even if they're PMLD, they can show their displeasure in many different ways, and then they've got to go. So having something that you could set up really, really quickly was one of the driving forces behind this. But you're right. I think that's an issue that we've yet to sort of fully investigate, because it's just where we are in the cycle of developing the software. But I think you're right. Yes, it needs to be something that people can get in and use very quickly. And I think also there's something to be discussed, because I know from a lot of my colleagues in the music service who, let's say, perhaps come from a more classical background in terms of training, where it's about learning to play instruments. So something like this, it's like, well, Simon, is it music? Is it really what you should do? Well, I mean, people come from different perspectives on these things. But I think, you have to think it's about being creative, because, I just use the animal sounds there. But if you can think you can put any sample in, you could have a real sort of creative thing about how we're going to do something with that. We did have the first performance of the software was done at a schools festival. The school in question, Rowngate Special School in Wellingborough, it wasn't I Want to Be by the Seaside, it was some seaside song. And Mate, who has very little movement, used the game track. We just had some seaside sound samples in there. And his place was, in a sense, it's not playing music, but what the software enabled him to do was to find a significant role in that social and performance context for him to actually fully take part in that. And so he had a little bit at the beginning, like an overture, of just playing around and finding the different samples before we launched into the song. So no, he wasn't, in a way, playing along with the song. It would be quite difficult, perhaps, with some of the sensors and some of the players to set up, say, like playing a scale. But thank God, music isn't just about playing a scale, is it? There's lots of other things we can do. So I think it's all about the creativity of the people involved. And I think one of the things that came out of this, particularly when we started looking at the MIDI mapper, is just thinking, okay, that's great, Simon. Love the core gadgets, love GarageBand, love Logic, but I don't know how to use them. So you uncover yet another training thing that the teachers have just not got time to do, and that's stuff for the future. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. And I think you just hit on this, but I really liked what you said about how it seemed more effective to not have these things mapped out, not have the children map out manually this whole thing, but having these sort of generated mappings.
Yeah.
With the generated mapping, or do you think there's any room within music therapy for these custom mappings by the children, or do you think it's just so much easier for them to have these auto-generated mappings and explore?
Well, I think in terms of what Jan and Rebecca have said, and I think Rebecca in particular, I think they use the quick version, the automatic mappings, a lot. Yeah. Because you have to remember, a lot of the kids they're working with are non-verbal. So you can't get into a conversation about, okay, you like horses, don't you? Right, so where should we put the horse sound? So all that business about having a conversation about how you want the software to work, how you want the sounds to work, just doesn't work. I mean, we've got a patch on here which I always really hated, which is just it's just an FM synthesis patch where you're controlling the carrier wave, the modulating wave and everything. And of course, it just sounds like an FM radio, doesn't it, most of the time? But it's very sensitive to movement, just like when you're tuning a dial on an FM radio. I mean, I know that most of you won't be tuning dials on FM radios anymore, but I used to do stuff like that, you know. And I think for those kids, they're at the stage where they have little control over their lives. A lot of things are done for them, but suddenly here is something where they can think, I actually influenced that sound. I made an action. I had agency in the world. And I think that's one of the things that's come out of this. So if you're looking at it, at the stage we are, in the way it's been developed from the original Wekinator software, if you're looking at something that's going to be able to play, sit in with the orchestra and do Beethoven 5, I think you might struggle a little bit. But actually, is that, there's other, as we were saying before, there are other things that you can be doing like that and being creative. And, we did have a go over the summer with having an ensemble of all PMLD kids. We had lots of help from musicians, the parents and carers as well. Some kids were using the sound control software. We did have sound beam there as well. We even had a guitar, electric guitar, plumbed into a little amp, lots of delay, reverb, modulations, just strum it, makes a lovely sound, and made it was chaos, of course, but it was, again, it's about the kids, you structure the session so that everybody has a turn and everybody's feeling that actually now I have some control, I have some agency, and there's a place for me to do this in. So I think there's a lot of sort of social things going on with the way that this sort of software works and the way that you would deploy it with those types of kids. In terms of sort of like musicians using it, we did use one of the musical inclusion team members who's a drummer, kit drummer, and we did get, because you can actually, I think it might, I'm not sure the software is supposed to do this, but you can have several sensors all working at the same time. And I think he had these two things, one to each leg, so one for a kick drum, one for a hi-hat, and I think he had a Micra Bit on that did maybe the side drum, and I don't know what he did for the fourth one. I do remember he had all four limbs going. And so it was a bit wonky, and I think some of that was to do with the Bluetooth and other things. So it wasn't that precise, but you can see there's another side to it where you can be a little bit more precise. But that's for a different type of person who's using it. He's not going to be with the profound and multiple learning difficulty brigade, I think. They're approaching it in a different way, yes. It is available. If I can find it on here, the last slide. Yes, you can download it from www.soundcontrolsoftware.com. It's free and open source. On the site itself, Sam's done a whole range of tutorials to show you how to use it. And I think that, maybe one only little complexity is to get the Micra Bit up and running. Micra Bit's important because it's cheap. So it's really good for the schools. You do have to download and put in a little bit of hex code, but Sam can tell you a little bit more about that. I think I've done it once, and made it work, but I can't remember what I did. But it's all there on the site. How are we doing for time? We're out of time, are we? Okay. Well, look, thank you very much, everybody. I hope that was informative. Do download the software. Do have a go yourself. You don't need any of these devices. You could just download it and use it with the color tracker and see how you get on. And we'd love to hear, actually, if people have been using it or do try it. All suggestions welcome. I don't know when we're going to do any more work on it, but nonetheless, it'd be lovely to hear from people who have used it. Thank you very much. Thank you.